Welcome to Captivating Movie Recaps. The movie's title is The Untouchable Movie, which was set in modern-day Paris, France. It starts when Driss is chauffeuring his boss, Philippe, across Paris one late night. When stuck in traffic is too monotonous, Driss exceeds the posted speed limit and starts moving rather quickly while evading other vehicles and disregarding traffic signs. The police begin to pursue him as a result, and Driss wagers €100 so that he can escape with them. However, after driving beneath a bridge, the police finally catch up with him by ambushing them from both sides. Driss doesn't appear very concerned, and this time he stakes €200 on his ability to secure them an escort. He starts acting up when the police force him out of the car, appearing irritated and claiming he was driving Philippe to the hospital because he couldn't move. When the cops approach Philippe, they witness him convulsing, which is also an act, and they also discover the wheelchair inside the truck as evidence. The police excuse Driss for exceeding the speed limit because it was an emergency and offered to accompany him to the hospital. Driss plays September by Earth, Wind and Fire to celebrate winning the wager, and as soon as the police have left and they are at their destination, he enjoys a cigarette with Philippe. Before the medical staff can locate them, Driss promises to handle the situation and drives them away. This friendship has been going on for a while. Philippe and his assistant Magali are conducting interviews to locate a new caregiver for him. Still, things aren't going well because all the candidates have extremely generic or odd responses to the interview questions. However, they are startled when Driss bursts in, disregarding that it isn't nearly his time because he only needs some paperwork signed stating that they won't hire him so he can receive unemployment benefits. Although he is frank and impolite, even making advances toward Magali, Philippe finds him funny and invites him to return the next day to pick up his completed documents. Driss returns to his modest house in the neighborhood and attempts to take a bath as his younger siblings disturb him. He only succeeds in finishing in time owing to his elder sister Mina, who is more responsible. He sees his brother Adama stepping out of a strange automobile as he waits for his mother to come via the window. Driss is even more confident that the child is up to no good when he enters the flat and states that he was at school before taking his bag and leaving again. When his mother shows up later that day, he gives her a Fabergé he had stolen and responds to her inquiry by saying he had been on vacation. However, she is not delighted to see him because he has been missing for 6 months and didn't call, and now he has popped out of nowhere as if her house were a hotel. She throws him out and warns him not to return because she is so fed up with his lies and has other kids to care for. Driss spends the evening socializing with neighbors while smoking and eating goodies. The housekeeper, Yvonne, meets Driss when he returns to Philippe's residence the next day to pick up his paperwork. She gives him a tour of the property and describes Philippe's daily routine while showing him the room with the bathroom he would be given. Before being brought to visit Philippe, who gives the signed piece of paper and a job chance, Driss can't help but stare at the bathtub. Philippe offers Driss a wager that he won't last more than 2 weeks after he accepts the 1-month trial. Having brought his belongings to his room, Driss is instructed on how to care for Philippe. He has to learn how to put him in the wheelchair, keep his legs active, and assist him with bathing and getting dressed. Things get unpleasant when Driss learns he must wear high stockings and clean his butt after Philippe uses the restroom. However, no matter how much he protests and declares that he won't perform those tasks, he ultimately agrees to do them as part of his job. Later that night, when he's snacking on the roof, Philippe's daughter Elisa and her boyfriend Bastien, who are seeking a secluded place to make out, stop him, and he refuses to let them in his beer with others. Even though he first makes some mistakes that he learns from, such as handing Philippe the phone instead of placing it on his ear or forgetting the baby monitor while taking a bath, Driss rapidly adjusts to Philippe's daily schedule. He opens most of the letters for Philippe, but there are a few private ones he isn't permitted to look at. He also learns to sort his mail into distinct categories. In contrast to Philippe's advice, he chooses to make a file just for advertisements for female escorts after finding one. Although his new life is mostly work, Driss tries to have fun. He attempts to make out with Magali and occasionally invites escorts to join him in bed. After calling him out for being late one morning, Yvonne enters his room and discovers some potentially harmful items in his backpack without saying anything about them. Philippe needs to be driven around today, but Driss refuses to load him into a truck like he's cargo. Instead, he drives Philippe in one of the posh automobiles that seldom get used. Although Yvonne continues to disapprove, Philippe quickly becomes enthusiastic at the prospect of a speedier, less tedious journey after initially thinking this is inappropriate and that they should be pragmatic. When they attempt to exit the building, a neighbor is already parked there, defying the warning notice on the door. Driss wastes no time pursuing the man, grabbing him by the front of his shirt and yelling at him until he moves the car. His deeds impress Philippe, but Yvonne disapproves once again. The two visit a museum, where Philippe intends to purchase a work of art that Driss believes is unworthy of the money because it is only a red splotch on the painting. Following that, Philippe meets with a relative of his, who informs him that everyone is concerned about Driss since he has a history of violence. He has also learned that he has a criminal record, but Philippe doesn't care because Driss doesn't feel sorry for him and enjoys making jokes with him. Driss and Yvonne have supper in the kitchen as Philippe dictates a letter to Magali after another failed effort to hit on her. Yvonne switches off the baby monitor, saying it's a private talk, and starts outlining what's happening. The letters Philippe wouldn't allow Driss to see were from a woman named Eleanor, with whom he is pen friends. But he has never met Eleanor, their communication is just through letters. Speaking about love, Driss makes fun of Yvonne for getting frequent stares from the gardener before bed. He's attempting to fall asleep when the baby monitor starts making strange noises. Philippe is having problems breathing. Driss enters his room to calmly guide him through the assault with calming words and a damp towel to wash his face since he can't ignore him, no matter how hard he tries. Philippe ultimately nods off, but a few minutes later, he wakes up again, claiming he needs air. This time, Philippe is placed in the wheelchair by Driss, who immediately wraps him in blankets and takes him for a stroll by the river. Philippe tells Driss that this is the first time in a very long time that he has seen Paris at night and that he occasionally feels phantom agony since the medication can only do so much for him. Philippe also acknowledges that, due to his circumstances, he cannot sexually assault a woman. However, because his ears are sensitive, he may still get some gratification while massaging them. Driss shares one of his joints with Philippe as the phantom pain threatens to return. Philippe is first dubious, but ends up loving it. They then visit a restaurant, where Philippe chooses to relate more to his tale as they laugh together while eating. He first met his wife as a student, and shortly after their marriage, she suffered 5 miscarriages and was given an irreversible, fatal sickness. They adopted Elisa at that point. A paraglider satisfied Philippe's passion for competitiveness, extreme sports, and speed. Although he still believes that his actual handicap isn't the chair but life without his wife, he crashed and broke his vertebrae when paragliding due to bad weather. After some more banter, Philippe recalls the time and understands that Driss has completed his 1-month trial and is now officially employed. But he must first return the Fabergé he took from his wife since she would have given it to him every year, and he now possesses precisely 25 of them, which corresponds to the length of their marriage. The following day, Driss approaches Mina as she is leaving school. She is a little miffed that he hasn't responded to her messages other than to urge her to seek the egg, and she also informs him that the police have been calling their house. He then goes to see Adama, who admits that he was discovered to be carrying 30 grams. Adama declines Driss' offer to take him out to lunch and boards the exact unreliable vehicle as previously. Driss is then permitted to watch while Philippe dictates a letter to Magali on behalf of Eleanor. He finds Philippe's flowery prose dull and feels he should be more direct. He is also perplexed to learn that this has been happening for 6 months, with no image exchange. He interprets it as a sign when he sees her phone number on one of the letters and phones her, forcing Philippe to pick up the phone and finally talk to her verbally. Since their talk goes so well, Philippe calls her frequently now, even before he and Driss go to the opera, where Driss giggles and makes fun of the clothes. The next day, Driss persuades Philippe to agree to a photo exchange with Eleanor and selects a shot of him using a wheelchair. Elisa then barges into his room while he is painting to ask for smokes and mocks him for attempting to be creative. He becomes upset and throws her out before meeting Philippe, who now requests that Yvonne replace the selected image with one of him when he doesn't have paraplegia. Just before Driss stormed in, ranting about Elisa and insisting that Philippe should punish her for a position Yvonne shares, she buried the photo within the escort file. Philippe consents to speak with her, but he is primarily taken aback when Driss admits that he has been painting. As the days go by, Philippe and Driss' friendship gets closer. Philippe buys him his first outfit and chastises his daughter as Driss listens to him on the baby monitor. Driss takes him outside to play in the snow and takes him with him when he goes for a run. After finishing it, Driss exhibits his first picture to Magali, but she smacks him away when he attempts to kiss her. However, Philippe claims he will try to sell the artwork since he enjoys it. They both like spending time together and doing fun things like sharing weed, acquiring faster cars, and even hiring prostitutes. When Philippe's birthday finally arrives, he isn't very enthusiastic. Every year, he has to meet with all these relatives who only visit him on the day to ensure he's still alive while pretending to be startled that they are hosting a celebration. It will all be quite dull, according to Philippe. Driss searches for Elisa in her room as the other guests listen to live classical music. Elisa is sobbing after taking some of Yvonne's medicines, which didn't kill her as she had feared. She wants Driss to speak with Bastien, who she believes is the cause of her sadness because he dumped her and called her a tart. Driss agrees to do so for a fee. Philippe manages to persuade his relative to purchase Driss artwork for 11,000 while he is still doing this. When Driss returns to the dining area, Yvonne informs him that although Magali is in a relationship with Fred, things are now pretty tricky. This information gives Driss optimism. Philippe forces Driss to listen to some of the most significant. He comes to his iPod and plays Boogie Wonderland by Earth, Wind and Fire after the band has finished playing before he starts dancing in the center of the floor. He is a fantastic dancer, and Philippe likes seeing him get the other party members to dance with him as well. After putting Philippe to sleep, Driss reads Eleanor's most recent letter. She sends him a photo of herself, which reveals that she is pretty attractive, and suggests they meet when she visits Paris the following week. On an actual day, Yvonne and Driss try on hundreds of costumes for Philippe before settling on the ideal one. Driss takes his day off to visit Bastien and threatens him until he agrees to apologize to Eliza and bring her croissants daily. He also wants him to maintain his car since Yvonne will be driving Philippe to the date. He then briefly visits his mother at work to observe her from a distance. Eleanor is late, so Yvonne and Philippe are waiting for her at the restaurant. Philippe gives up after waiting for an hour, phones Driss to get him, and then exits the restaurant without realizing Eleanor is also arriving at the exact moment. The following evening, Driss receives the proceeds from the sale of the photograph from Philippe in his aircraft, making him incredibly delighted. The following morning, when they are in the countryside, Philippe decides to go paragliding and drags Driss. Although Driss doesn't want to participate, after initially freaking out, he finds the experience enjoyable. Adama is waiting for Driss when they arrive home and gets chastised when he notices the scars on his face. Though Adama refuses to tell Driss what is happening in his life, the doctor makes him wait in his room while he contacts Mina to reassure her and puts Philippe to bed. But Philippe hasn't yet fallen asleep. He asks Driss about his family after forcing him to gaze at a picture alongside him. At first, Driss resists the question but finally yields. It turns out that Adama isn't his brother legally, and his parents, aunt and uncle, aren't his parents. His original name was Bakary Baysari, but because other children had that name, they nicknamed him Idris, which later became Driss. They brought him back from Senegal when he was 8 because they could not have children. After his uncle passed away, there were more men and more children, and one day his aunt suddenly became pregnant. Philippe points out that Adama has to be disciplined, just as Driss had spoken to him about Elisa, so he dismisses Driss so he can be with his family since he couldn't spend his entire life caring for an elderly guy. The following day, when Bastien has brought his usual croissant and has styled his hair better, Driss packs his luggage and prepares to go. Magali arrives to say her goodbyes, and when Driss makes one final attempt to woo her, she introduces him to Fred, which is short for Frederic. It turns out that Magali isn't interested in males, and Driss quits up immediately. Giving the baby monitor back to Yvonne as he leaves the house, he makes fun of her for lying to him about Magali playing a practical joke on him. She gives him the escort file he had begun in exchange, and he is unhappy to see that the image he had selected is concealed inside. Although Driss discards the file, he retains the picture for himself. Once outside, he discovers a car blocking the entrance once more. Even though the driver no longer works there, he requests that he move the car. Driss claims that it is a question of principle when Adama calls him out on it. In the meantime, Philippe is eating his first meal with his new babysitter, who is stuffy and monotonous and chooses to leave without even a mouthful. The two brothers pick up their mother at the station a few hours later, meanwhile, back at home. No one is there to chastise him because Yvonne is out on a date with the gardener. Driss returns to his previous lifestyle as time goes on. He rejoins his old buddies and urges the men in the strange automobile to stop bothering Adama. He succeeds in impressing the interviewer when he attends one for which he lacks the necessary expertise by referring to himself as pragmatic and using all the art knowledge he picked up while working for Philippe. As a result, he is hired as a driver. Philippe is still in a terrible attitude and detests his new caregiver. When he refuses to accept aid from anybody in the home one night, Yvonne phones Driss and begs him to come over. They find themselves in this predicament right away, with the police pursuing them at first and then taking them to the hospital. Following that little journey, Driss takes Philippe to the seaside, where he can relax after seeing the water. Later, Driss trims Philippe's excessive beard and brings him to a restaurant for lunch, but he leaves early because Philippe will have company today from someone else. Philippe begins to worry about being alone until he realizes who his date is, Eleanor, who is the actual Count Philippe Pozzo di Borgo, who has remarried and has 2 daughters, currently resides in Morocco. The real Driss, who goes by the name Abdel Yasmin Salou, is married with 3 kids and has his own business. Even now, the friendship between the 2 guys is still quite strong. This movie teaches us that sometimes unexpected connections can bridge the gaps between different worlds, reminding us that true friendship knows no boundary.